The wedding hall fell into a strange, uncomfortable silence as the bride and groom stepped onto the white marble aisle. Hundreds of eyes followed them. Elsa stood tall and glowing in her ivory wedding gown, her caramel skin catching the soft golden light from the chandeliers. Her natural hair was styled into a neat, elegant bun crowned with a delicate silver tiara. She looked every bit like the billionaire's daughter everyone knew her to be, graceful, confident, breathtaking. Beside her walked Akin. He was dressed sharply in a dark tailored suit, polished shoes clicking softly on the marble floor. But no matter how perfect his outfit was, it couldn't hide what the crowd immediately noticed. He was short, very short. A murmur rolled through the hall like distant thunder. "Is that the groom?" someone whispered, not bothering to lower their voice. "Why is he so small? Is that a joke?" A few people covered their mouths, pretending to gasp in surprise. Others leaned forward, squinting as if hoping they were mistaken. Some even stood on their toes, trying to see him better over the sea of heads. Then came the laughter. At first it was subtle, soft chuckles, suppressed snorts, but as the couple walked farther down the aisle, the mocking grew bolder. "Is she marrying a child?" a man scoffed. "Maybe it's charity," a woman whispered loudly. "Rich girls like to do strange things." Another voice cut through the noise. That billionaire's daughter could have married anyone in the world, anyone, and she chose this. Akin heard it all. His shoulders tensed, but he kept walking. His chin stayed up, his eyes stayed forward. Elsa felt the shift immediately. Her fingers tightened around Akin's hand. She could hear the insults too. She could feel the judgment pressing down on them from every direction. But she did not slow her steps. In the front row, some of the most powerful people in the city exchanged confused glances. Business moguls, politicians, celebrities, all invited because Elsa's father was one of the richest men in the country. They had expected luxury, power, perfection. They had not expected a groom they could barely see from their seats. "Unbelievable," an elderly woman muttered. "A beautiful girl like that wasting her life." Another guest shook his head. There must be something wrong with him or with her. Near the aisle, a group of young men laughed openly now. "Maybe she lost a bet. Maybe he's her driver." "No," another said cruelly, "drivers are taller." Akin's steps faltered for half a second. Elsa noticed. She stopped walking. The music continued, but the sudden pause caught everyone's attention. The laughter faded into whispers again. Elsa turned slowly toward Akin. She looked down at him, not with pity, not with shame, but with something fierce and protective burning in her eyes. Akin whispered, "It's okay, we can keep going." Elsa shook her head slightly, her jaw tightened. She turned back toward the crowd. Her eyes scanned the hall, meeting stare after stare. Some faces looked embarrassed, others looked curious, too many looked amused. Then Elsa did something no one expected. She smiled. Not a weak smile, not a nervous one. A strong, confident smile. She lifted her chin and squeezed Akin's hand again, harder this time, and they continued walking. But the damage had already been done. Her father, seated in the front row, sat stiffly in his custom-made suit. His face was unreadable, but his clenched fists betrayed him. He had warned Elsa, begged her even. He had offered money, cars, houses, anything to make her change her mind. And now here they were. A billionaire's daughter marrying a man the world saw as ordinary and less. At the altar, the officiant cleared his throat nervously. He had officiated many weddings, but never one like this. As Elsa and Akin reached the front, the whispers grew louder again. "Why him? What does he have? Is she blind?" Then someone said it. Loud, sharp, cruel. "Imagine risking your future for a dwarf." The word hung in the air like poison. Akin flinched this time, his grip loosened. Elsa turned sharply toward the voice, but she couldn't tell who had said it. It could have been anyone. The sound had come from the crowd itself, as if the entire room had spoken at once. The officiant opened his mouth to begin, but Elsa raised her hand. Gasps echoed through the hall. "What is she doing?" someone whispered. Elsa stepped forward, still holding Akin's hand, and turned fully to face the guests. Her voice rang out clear and steady. "Before we continue," she said, "I want to say something." The room froze. Even the mocking smiles faded. Akin looked up at her, eyes wide. "Elsa." She glanced down at him briefly, her expression softening, then she faced the crowd again. I know what many of you are thinking, she continued. I can hear you, I can feel your judgment. Her father shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Elsa took a slow breath. You see a short man in a suit and you think he is nothing, she said. You see me and you think I could do better. A ripple of tension passed through the hall. But none of you know the truth. Akin's heart began to race. What was she about to say? Elsa's eyes glistened, but she did not cry. Her voice remained steady, strong. You are laughing at the very man who saved my life. The hall erupted in shocked murmurs. Saved her life? What does she mean? Elsa tightened her grip on Akin's hand again. When I was gravely ill, she said slowly, when doctors said I would not survive without a miracle, this man stepped forward. She paused, letting the words sink in. When everyone else ran away, she continued, when wealth, beauty, and promises meant nothing, he gave me a part of himself so I could live. Akin's eyes filled with tears. The crowd stared stunned. Elsa took one more step forward. And yet, she said, her voice breaking for the first time, you still don't know the full story. A heavy silence swallowed the hall. Elsa turned toward Akin, her eyes filled with emotion. Because what none of you know, she said, is what he lost and what he endured to keep me alive. Akin swallowed hard. The officiant stood frozen. The crowd leaned forward. And just as Elsa opened her mouth to reveal everything, the massive doors at the back of the wedding hall burst open. All heads snapped around. A familiar voice echoed through the room. Stop this wedding right now. Elsa's breath caught. Akin stiffened. The entire hall froze in shock as a man stepped inside, his face pale, his eyes burning with urgency. And in that moment, everything was about to change. The doors slammed shut behind the man who had interrupted the wedding, and the echo of the sound rippled through the hall like a warning bell. Everyone stared. He was tall, well-dressed, and clearly wealthy. His suit was expensive, his watch even more so. His face carried urgency mixed with something else, fear. Elsa's father shot up from his seat. What are you doing here? He demanded. The man took a step forward. You know who I am, he said, and you know why I'm here. Murmurs spread again. Akin felt Elsa's hand tremble in his. He leaned closer. Do you know him? Elsa nodded slowly, her face had gone pale. Yes, she whispered, I do. The man at the door was Marcus Hale, one of the most powerful businessmen in the city and once a serious suitor for Elsa's hand. Marcus's eyes moved from Elsa to Akin, lingering there with clear disdain. This is a mistake, Marcus said loudly, a life-changing one. Elsa straightened her shoulders. You have no right to be here. I have every right, Marcus snapped, because this wedding is built on a lie. Gasps filled the hall. Akin's heart pounded. He felt the weight of hundreds of eyes on him again, heavier than before. Elsa's father stepped between Marcus and the couple. You will leave, he said coldly, now. Marcus laughed bitterly. You don't even know the full story, sir, none of you do. Elsa clenched her jaw. Say what you came to say. Marcus hesitated, then spoke. This man, he said, pointing at Akin, is not the hero you think he is. A low rumble of whispers returned. Akin opened his mouth, but no words came out. Marcus continued, Elsa, you were young, you were sick, you were desperate, you don't know what really happened back then. Elsa's voice was sharp. I know enough. Do you, Marcus asked, or were you kept in the dark just like everyone else? The tension in the room was unbearable. Elsa's father raised his hand. Security, he barked. Two guards stepped forward, but Marcus raised his palms calmly. I'll leave, he said, but not before the truth comes out. He looked directly at the guests. If you think this wedding is about love alone, you're wrong. Elsa's heart pounded painfully. Marcus, stop. Marcus met her gaze. You deserve better than a man who hides his past. That was enough. Elsa turned to Akin. Look at me, she said softly. Akin did. She smiled at him, a sad but determined smile. No matter what anyone says today, I know who you are. Marcus shook his head. You think you do. Security finally stepped in, gripping Marcus's arms. This isn't over, Marcus warned as he was dragged toward the door. Not by a long shot. The doors closed again, leaving behind a stunned silence. For a long moment no one spoke. Then Elsa faced the crowd once more. "I'm sorry for that interruption," she said, "but now you see why I need to tell this story from the beginning." She took a deep breath. "Years ago," she began, "I was not the strong woman standing here today." Her voice softened and the hall seemed to fade away. "I was 21, I had everything money could buy, but my body was failing me." The lights dimmed slightly as her words carried everyone back in time. Elsa had collapsed during a charity gala. At first, doctors thought it was stress, then came the tests, the scans, the long, silent looks between specialists. Kidney failure. Both kidneys. The diagnosis hit like a death sentence. Despite her father's wealth, suitable donors were hard to find, compatibility was rare, time was running out. Suitors who once crowded around Elsa disappeared quietly, phone calls stopped, promises faded. Marcus had been there then too. "I will find a donor," he had said confidently, "money can fix anything." But it couldn't. Weeks turned into months, Elsa grew weaker, her once bright smile faded, machines replaced her freedom. Her father searched everywhere, private hospitals, overseas clinics, nothing worked. Then one afternoon, a nurse walked into Elsa's room with a visitor. A man she had never seen before. Short, quiet, nervous. His clothes were simple, his shoes worn. "This is Akin," the nurse said gently. "He asked to see you." Elsa had been confused. Why? Akin stood awkwardly near the door. I heard about you," he said. "I work at the hospital." He was a cleaner then, invisible to most people. Elsa had forced a smile. "That's kind of you." He nodded, hesitating. "I got tested." Elsa frowned. "Tested for what?" "For compatibility," he said quietly. The room had gone silent. Elsa's father had rushed forward. "Why would you do that?" Akin looked down at his hands. "Because someone needs to live." Doctors confirmed it later that day. Akin was a perfect match. Elsa remembered crying not from relief but from guilt. "I can't ask this of you," she had said. Akin had shaken his head. "You didn't ask, I offered." The surgery had been risky, painful, life-altering. But it worked. Elsa lived. Akin disappeared quietly after the operation, refusing money, refusing attention. "I just wanted you to be okay," he had said. Elsa's voice trembled as she told the story now. "And that," she said to the wedding hall, "is the man you mocked." The crowd sat in stunned silence. But Elsa hadn't finished. She turned to Akin again, tears finally slipping down her cheeks. "What I didn't know then," she said softly, "was what he gave up afterward and the price he paid in silence." Akin's eyes darkened. Because there was a part of the story Elsa still didn't know. And in the shadows of the wedding hall, someone else listened carefully, someone who knew that truth would shatter everything Elsa believed. And when that truth came out, this wedding might not survive it. The hall remained silent long after Elsa's words settled into the air. Some guests lowered their heads, others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The laughter from earlier now felt cruel and heavy, like a stain no one could wipe away. Akin stood quietly beside Elsa, his hands clasped in front of him. He said nothing. He never liked attention, especially not like this. Elsa turned fully toward him. "After the surgery," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "you disappeared." Akin nodded slowly. "I searched for you," she continued. "I asked the hospital staff, I asked doctors, no one could tell me where you went." The guests leaned in, listening closely now. Akin finally spoke. "I didn't want you to feel like you owed me anything." Elsa shook her head. "But I did owe you my life." She faced the crowd again. "What I didn't know then was that while I was recovering in comfort, Akin was suffering." A murmur rose again. "Suffering how?" someone whispered. Elsa swallowed. "The surgery didn't just take his kidney, it took his job." Gasps echoed through the hall. Akin lifted his eyes sharply. "Elsa." She squeezed his hand. "Let me finish." She explained how Akin's long recovery meant he couldn't return to work, how hospital management replaced him quietly, how his small savings disappeared under medical bills. "He never told me," Elsa said. "I only found out years later." A woman in the front row wiped her eyes. Elsa continued, I met him again by chance 2 years after my recovery. I almost didn't recognize him. The memory replayed clearly in her mind. She had been leaving a charity meeting downtown when she saw him outside, sweeping the sidewalk of a small cafe. He looked thinner, older. But when their eyes met, his smile was the same. Elsa, he had said softly, as if saying her name too loudly might break something. She had frozen. "You're alive," she whispered stupidly. He chuckled, "I hope so." They talked that day, then again the next week, and the next. Elsa learned the truth slowly. Akin lived modestly. He never complained, never blamed anyone. He simply worked, rested, and lived. "I didn't want you to know," he had told her. "I didn't want your gratitude. I wanted your life to continue." Back in the wedding hall, Elsa's voice shook with emotion. "He never used his sacrifice to demand anything from me," she said. "He never asked for money. He never asked for recognition." She turned sharply toward the crowd. "And yet today, you judged him based on what you could see." The hall was painfully quiet now. Elsa turned back to Akin, tears streaming freely. "Somewhere along the way, I fell in love with you." Akin's breath caught. "I didn't plan it," Elsa continued. "It scared me. My father was against it. Society laughed at the idea." Her father shifted in his seat, guilt flashing briefly across his face. "But I realized something," Elsa said. "This man loved me when I had nothing to offer but a dying body." She looked at the guests again. "If that isn't love, then what is?" Applause started slowly, one person, then another. Soon the hall filled with clapping. Akin stood frozen, overwhelmed. Elsa smiled through her tears. But then the clapping stopped. Because a woman stood up near the middle row. She was older, dressed simply, her eyes sharp with urgency. "That is not the full truth," the woman said loudly. Every head turned. Elsa frowned. "Who are you?" The woman took a step forward. "My name is Mrs. Kemi. I worked in that hospital." A chill ran through the hall. Akin's face drained of color. Elsa's heart began to race. "What are you saying?" Mrs. Kemi swallowed. "What you don't know, Elsa, is that Akin did not just lose his job because of recovery." Gasps rippled again. "What do you mean?" Elsa asked. Mrs. Kemi looked at Akin, then back at Elsa. "He was blamed." "Blamed for what?" Elsa demanded. "For a complication," Mrs. Kemi said, "after your surgery." The room erupted in murmurs. Akin's voice was low. "Please don't." Elsa stared at him. "Akin." Mrs. Kemi continued. "There was an internal investigation. Something went wrong during the procedure." Elsa's breath became shallow. "What went wrong?" Mrs. Kemi hesitated, then said the words. "They said Akin caused it." Silence crashed over the hall. Akin closed his eyes. Elsa felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "Caused what?" Mrs. Kemi's voice shook. "They said his condition nearly killed you." Elsa staggered back a step. "That's a lie," Elsa said weakly. Mrs. Kemi nodded. "It was." The crowd buzzed. "They needed someone to blame," the woman continued. "And Akin was easy, poor, quiet, alone." Elsa turned to Akin, her voice breaking. "Is this true?" Akin opened his eyes slowly. "Yes," he said. Elsa's knees nearly gave way. "They told me," Akin continued softly, "that if I fought it, it would ruin you too, so I accepted it." Elsa stared at him in disbelief. "You let them ruin your name?" Akin nodded. "To protect yours." Elsa covered her mouth, sobbing. "But that's not all," Mrs. Kemi said suddenly. The hall froze again. "There was someone else involved," she added, "someone powerful." Elsa looked up sharply. "Who?" Mrs. Kemi's gaze shifted toward the back of the hall, toward the closed doors Marcus had exited through. "Someone who wanted you alive," she said slowly. "But never wanted you to marry this man." The realization hit Elsa like lightning. Her breath caught. The truth was bigger than love. Bigger than sacrifice. And it was about to tear open secrets that had been buried for years. Before the room could erupt again, the officiant raised his hand hesitantly, unsure whether the wedding even still existed. Elsa stood trembling, torn between shock, gratitude, and betrayal. And as she looked at Akin, this man who had given everything for her, she realized the story was far from over. Because the biggest question remained unanswered. Who really tried to destroy him? And what would happen when the truth finally came out? If this story is already touching your heart, take a moment to like the video and share it with someone who believes love is more than appearances. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens next, because the truth is about to get even darker. A few minutes in, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The wedding hall felt smaller now, as if the walls had moved closer to trap everyone inside the truth. Elsa stood frozen, her hand still locked with Akin's, but her mind was racing. The image she had carried for years of a quiet sacrifice, of silent love, had just been cracked open to reveal something darker and far more painful. Her father rose slowly from his seat. "What complication?" he asked, his voice calm but dangerous. "And who exactly covered it up?" Mrs. Kemi inhaled deeply. During the surgery, Elsa's body reacted unexpectedly. Her blood pressure dropped dangerously low. The doctors stabilized her, but afterward the hospital board panicked. "Why?" Elsa asked, her voice barely steady. "Because your case was high profile," Mrs. Kemi said. "If you had died, it would have ruined them. Lawsuits, scandal." Akin's jaw tightened. "They needed a shield," Mrs. Kemi continued. "Someone they could quietly blame if anything went wrong." Elsa's chest tightened painfully, "So they chose him." "Yes," Mrs. Kemi said. "And they told him if he spoke out, they would say your body rejected his kidney completely. They would paint him as reckless, even dangerous." Elsa turned sharply to Akin. "Why didn't you tell me?" Akin's voice was calm, but his eyes were full. "Because you were healing, because you were finally free. I couldn't take that away from you." Elsa shook her head slowly, disbelief mixing with heartbreak. "You carried all of this alone." "I'm used to it," Akin said quietly. That hurt more than anything else he could have said. The guests sat in stunned silence. No one laughed now, no one whispered insults, some couldn't even meet Akin's eyes. Elsa's father stepped closer to the couple, his face tight with regret. "I knew the hospital handled things quietly," he admitted, "but I never imagined this." He looked at Akin for the first time, not as an unworthy groom, not as an inconvenience, but as a man. "I failed you," he said. Akin lowered his head. "I didn't do it for thanks." Elsa turned to her father sharply. "Did Marcus know?" The question sliced through the air. Her father hesitated. That hesitation was answer enough. Elsa's eyes widened. "You knew." "He suspected," her father corrected. "He was involved in hospital investments at the time. He had influence." A hush fell again. "So he let them destroy Akin's life," Elsa said slowly, "so he could stay close to me." Her father said nothing. The memory rushed back to Elsa, Marcus visiting her in the hospital, bringing flowers, promising solutions, talking about the future as if it were guaranteed. While the man who saved her life was being erased. Elsa's hands began to shake. Akin noticed immediately. "Elsa, please." She released his hand and stepped forward. The hall held its breath. "This wedding," Elsa said clearly, "is not just about love." She turned toward the guests. "It is about truth and respect, and the kind of courage that doesn't come with money or power." She turned back to Akin. "You gave me your kidney," she said. "You gave me your future, and you gave up your name so I could live without guilt." Tears streamed freely down her face now. "I don't know how anyone could ever measure that," she said, "but I know this." She dropped to her knees in front of him. Gasps exploded across the hall. A billionaire's daughter, kneeling before a man they had mocked. "I choose you," Elsa said, "not because you saved me, but because you showed me what real love looks like." Akin's breath hitched. "Elsa, please don't." She reached up holding his hands. "Stand with me." He helped her up slowly. The officiant cleared his throat, voice trembling. "Shall we continue?" Before Elsa could answer, the doors at the back of the hall creaked open again. This time no one laughed, no one whispered. Marcus stepped inside. But he did not look confident now. His face was pale, his smile was gone. "I see the truth is out," he said tightly. Elsa turned to face him, her eyes cold. "You knew." Marcus sighed. "I knew enough." "You let them destroy him," Elsa said, "and you still thought I would choose you." Marcus took a step forward. "I thought you would choose stability, power, a future without weakness." Akin stood quietly beside Elsa, saying nothing. Elsa laughed softly, but there was no joy in it. "You think height makes a man weak." Marcus clenched his fists. You're throwing away everything for him. Elsa stepped closer. No, I'm reclaiming everything. Marcus looked around the hall, realizing the room had turned against him. This isn't over, he muttered. Elsa met his gaze. For you it is. Security moved in quickly this time, escorting Marcus out without ceremony. The doors closed again. The silence that followed was different now, heavy but respectful. Elsa turned back to the officiant. Yes, she said, we will continue. Akin looked at her stunned. Are you sure? She smiled at him, steady and certain, more than ever. But even as the ceremony resumed, Elsa felt it deep inside her. Marcus had lost today. But men like him never walked away quietly. And the final test of Akin's sacrifice and Elsa's choice was still waiting ahead. The officiant's voice echoed softly through the wedding hall as he resumed the ceremony, but the atmosphere had changed completely. No one was distracted now, no one whispered, every guest sat upright, listening with a new kind of attention. Akin stood beside Elsa, his heart still pounding. For the first time since walking down the aisle, he felt truly seen, not judged by his height, not measured by his bank account, seen. As the vows approached, Elsa's father stepped forward. Wait, he said. A ripple of tension passed through the hall again. Elsa turned to him. Dad. He looked at her, then at Akin. His eyes were heavy with regret. There are things I must say, he said, things I should have said years ago. The hall remained silent. I built my life on power and control, he continued. I believed money could protect my daughter from pain, but today I realize I was wrong. He faced Akin fully. You saved my daughter when I failed her, he said, and I allowed my pride to blind me to your worth. He bowed his head slightly. I am sorry. The words stunned everyone. Akin swallowed hard. Sir, you don't owe me anything. Elsa's father shook his head. I owe you the truth. He turned to the guests. The hospital investigation was buried using my influence, he admitted. I was told it would protect Elsa's peace. I believed it was the right thing to do. Elsa's chest tightened. You let them destroy him. I did, he said quietly, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make that right. The crowd absorbed this confession in stunned silence. Elsa reached for Akin's hand again. Whatever happens next, she whispered, we face it together. The officiant nodded gently and continued. When it came time for the vows, Akin hesitated. He had never planned for this moment, never imagined standing in front of so many people, his life laid bare. But he looked at Elsa, her steady eyes, her unwavering faith, and found his voice. Elsa, he said slowly, I never thought love would bring me here. A soft smile touched her lips. I have always lived quietly, he continued. I never expected to be chosen, I only hoped to do what was right. His voice trembled slightly. I don't promise wealth, he said. I don't promise power, but I promise truth and loyalty, and a heart that will never abandon you even when the world laughs. Tears streamed down Elsa's face. I promise to walk beside you, Akin said, no matter how loud the noise becomes. When Elsa spoke, her voice was firm. Akin, she said, you taught me that love is not found in appearances but in sacrifice. She took a breath. When you gave me your kidney, you gave me life, she said. But when you stayed silent to protect my peace, you gave me something even greater. She squeezed his hands. You gave me dignity. The hall was filled with quiet sobs. I promise to honor you, Elsa continued, to stand with you and to never allow the world to define your worth again. The officiant cleared his throat, emotion thick in his voice. By the power vested in me, he said, I now pronounce you husband and wife. For a moment the world stood still. Then Elsa leaned down and kissed Akin. The hall erupted not with mocking laughter this time but with applause, loud, sustained, earnest. People stood, some wiped their eyes, others nodded with deep respect. But as joy filled the room, danger stirred elsewhere. Outside the wedding hall, Marcus sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel. His phone buzzed. He answered sharply, What? A voice spoke quickly on the other end. The documents are moving. If they surface, the hospital scandal comes out. Marcus's jaw tightened, then stop them. We can't, the voice said, too many witnesses. Marcus slammed his fist against the wheel. Inside the hall, Elsa and Akin walked back down the aisle together, stronger than before. But as they passed the doors, Elsa felt a strange chill. She paused. "What is it?" Akin asked. "I don't know," she said softly. "It feels like the storm isn't over." Her father approached them. "There will be consequences," he said quietly, "for Marcus, for the hospital, for me." Elsa nodded. Truth always demands a price. Later at the reception, laughter returned, but it was different now, lighter, real. Guests who had mocked Akin earlier now approached him with respect. "I'm sorry," one man said, "I was wrong." Akin nodded politely, "Thank you." Elsa watched him closely. She saw the weight he carried, the scars no one else could see. As the night deepened, Elsa stepped away from the crowd and joined Akin by the balcony. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "I am now." She rested her head against his shoulder. But neither of them noticed the figure watching from a distance. A woman stood near the edge of the reception hall, her eyes fixed on Akin. Her expression was unreadable. And as she turned away, one thing was certain. The past had not finished with them yet. And the next truth to surface would test their marriage in ways neither of them expected. The honeymoon glow did not last long. Just 3 days after the wedding, the headlines exploded. Billionaire's son-in-law at center of hospital scandal. Elsa stared at her phone in disbelief as article after article flooded the screen. Old medical records, anonymous sources, leaked internal emails. The truth Marcus had tried to bury was clawing its way into the light. Akin sat quietly on the edge of the bed in their hotel suite, his hands folded, his face unreadable. "They're coming for you," Elsa said, her voice tight. "Not just Marcus, everyone who benefited from your silence." Akin nodded. "I expected this." "You expected your name to be dragged through the mud again?" she asked, anger rising. "I expected the truth to hurt before it healed," he replied calmly. That calm terrified her more than panic would have. By the next morning, reporters were camped outside the hotel. Social media was divided. Some praised Akin as a hero, others questioned his motives. Why donate a kidney to a billionaire's daughter? What did he gain? What is he hiding? Elsa slammed her phone down. "They're doing it again," turning you into a question mark. Akin looked at her gently, then let the answer be clear. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I won't hide anymore," he said, "not for your peace, not for mine." That afternoon, Elsa's father called. "The hospital board has reopened the investigation," he said. "They want Akin to testify." Elsa's heart dropped. Testify against who? Against the surgeons, the administrators, and Marcus. Silence filled the room. Akin stood slowly. "I'll do it." Elsa grabbed his arm. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do," he said, "because silence protected the wrong people." The hearing was scheduled quickly. On the day of the testimony, the room was packed. Lawyers, doctors, journalists, cameras flashing. Marcus sat at the far end, his confidence gone, his face tight with tension. Akin took the stand. For the first time, he told everything. How he was pressured, how documents were altered, how he was threatened with public blame if he spoke. "How did that make you feel?" a lawyer asked. Akin paused. "Small," he said simply, "not because of my height, but because I was treated like my life was disposable." The room went silent. Elsa watched with tears in her eyes as the man the world once mocked stood taller than anyone else in that room. When the hearing ended, arrests followed, suspensions, investigations. Marcus was taken in for questioning. As officers led him past Elsa and Akin, he stopped. "You think this makes you win," he said bitterly. Elsa met his gaze. "No, it makes us free." Outside, the crowd erupted with questions. A reporter shouted, "Akin, do you regret donating your kidney?" Akin looked at Elsa, then back at the cameras. "Never," he said. "Love doesn't regret doing right." That clip went viral. For the first time, the narrative shifted. People stopped talking about Akin's height. They started talking about his courage. That night, as Elsa and Akin sat alone, the weight of everything finally settled. "You could have lost everything," Elsa said softly. "I almost did," Akin replied, "but I gained my voice." Elsa reached for his hand, "and I gained the truth." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Elsa looked at him and asked quietly, "Do you ever wish you had walked away back then, when I was sick?" Akin smiled faintly. "No, because if I had, you wouldn't be here, and neither would we." Elsa leaned into him, overwhelmed with gratitude and fear and love all at once. But even as peace began to settle, one final truth still remained hidden. And when it came out, it would test not just Akin's strength, but Elsa's heart. If this story is moving you, take a moment to like the video and share it with someone who believes real love is about sacrifice, not appearance. The truth Elsa thought she had fully uncovered returned quietly, like a shadow that refused to disappear. It came in the form of a letter. No sender's name, no return address, just a cream-colored envelope delivered to their home late one evening. Elsa opened it while Akin was in the shower. The first line made her hands shake. "You still don't know everything about the night of your surgery." Her breath caught. She sat down slowly, her eyes racing across the page. The letter claimed that there was a second donor involved in the early stages of her case. Someone who had initially volunteered before backing out at the last minute, someone close, someone trusted. Elsa's heart began to pound painfully. The letter continued. "This person withdrew not out of fear, but because they were advised to." Elsa read the next line twice. "Your father made the call." The room seemed to tilt. "No," she whispered. The letter explained that when Elsa's condition worsened, doctors had suggested testing immediate family members again due to urgency. Her father had been a potential partial match, but the risk was high. Instead of proceeding, the letter claimed he was advised to protect himself, his health, and the empire he had built. The surgery was delayed. Time passed. Then Akin appeared. Elsa dropped the letter as if it burned her. When Akin stepped out of the bathroom, he immediately noticed her face. "What's wrong?" he asked. She picked up the letter with trembling hands and handed it to him. Akin read it carefully. His face remained calm, but something shifted behind his eyes. "Do you believe this?" he asked gently. Elsa swallowed hard. "I don't know, but I need answers." The next morning, they went to see her father. He was alone in his study when they arrived. The walls were lined with awards, photographs, symbols of a powerful life built carefully over decades. Elsa placed the letter on his desk. "Is this true?" she asked quietly. Her father stared at it for a long moment. Then he closed his eyes. "Yes," he said. The word hit Elsa like a blow. "I was afraid," he continued. "Afraid of leaving you without a parent, afraid of what would happen to everything I built." "So you stepped back," Elsa said, her voice hollow, "and let someone else step forward." Her father nodded slowly. "I didn't know it would be Akin." Elsa laughed bitterly, "But when it was, you let him suffer." "I was wrong," her father said, standing. "Every day I live with that." Elsa felt tears streaming down her face, but her voice was steady. "You didn't just fail me," she said, "you failed him." She turned to Akin. Shame flooding her. "I'm so sorry." Akin looked at her father calmly. "I don't hate you," he said, "but I won't pretend this didn't hurt." Her father's shoulders slumped. "I don't expect forgiveness, I only hope to earn it." Elsa took Akin's hand and led him out. That night silence filled their home. Elsa sat on the bed staring at the floor. "I don't know how to hold all of this," she said. "Love, gratitude, anger." Akin sat beside her. "You don't have to decide everything today." She looked at him. "Does it change how you see me, my family?" He shook his head. "It changes how I see fear." Elsa leaned into him, shaking. But the storm was not done. 2 days later, Elsa collapsed. Doctors rushed her to the hospital. Test results came back fast. Her kidney was failing. Again. The room went silent. Elsa looked at Akin, fear filling her eyes. "Not again." The doctor hesitated. "Stress may have triggered complications." Akin stood immediately. "Test me." Elsa grabbed his arm. "No." Akin looked at her firmly. "I will always choose you." Elsa shook her head through tears. "I can't let you give any more." The doctor cleared his throat. "There is another option." They both turned. "There is a donor already on record," he said carefully. Elsa's heart stopped. "Who?" she whispered. The doctor looked at the chart. "Your father." Elsa stared in disbelief. Outside the room, her father stood waiting. And for the first time in his life, he was ready to give everything back. But Elsa had to decide. Would she accept the sacrifice now? Or refuse it and risk losing everything? The answer would change all their lives forever. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of the monitor beside Elsa's bed. Her father stood near the door, his hands clasped tightly, his powerful frame suddenly looking smaller than Elsa had ever seen it. "I'm a match," he said again, his voice low. "The doctors confirmed it, I can do the transplant." Elsa stared at him, her chest rising and falling unevenly. For years, she had lived believing one man had stepped forward when everyone else had walked away. Now she knew the truth was more complicated: fear, power, delay, silence. And yet here he was. Ready now. Akin stood beside Elsa's bed, his hand resting gently over hers. He said nothing, this was her choice. "Why now?" Elsa asked her father quietly. He swallowed hard. "Because I already lost you once, and because I can't live the rest of my life knowing I chose myself over my child." Elsa closed her eyes. Memories flooded her mind, waking up week after the first surgery, finding out years later what Akin had endured, standing at the altar while the world mocked him, learning how many people had failed when courage was required. She opened her eyes and looked at Akin. "What do you think?" she asked softly. Akin met her gaze. "This isn't about what I think," he said gently. "It's about what you need to heal in your body and in your heart." Tears rolled down Elsa's cheeks. She turned to her father. "I accept," she said. Her father's breath broke, he nodded, unable to speak. The surgery happened 2 days later. It was long, risky, silent. Akin waited in the hallway, sitting on the same bench where he had once waited alone years before. This time he wasn't invisible. Nurses spoke to him kindly, doctors nodded with respect. When the surgeon finally emerged, Akin stood instantly. "The surgery was successful," the doctor said. "Both patients are stable." Akin closed his eyes, relief washing over him. Elsa woke hours later. The first face she saw was Akin's. She smiled weakly. "You're still here." He smiled back, "Always." Her father recovered in a nearby room. When Elsa was strong enough, he came to see her. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said quietly, "but I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve the chance." Elsa reached for his hand. "We'll heal one step at a time." Months passed. The scandal reshaped the hospital system, policies changed, quiet donors were protected, power no longer silenced truth so easily. Marcus disappeared from public life, his influence gone. Akin was offered recognition, money, even political opportunities. He declined most of them. "I already have what I need," he said. Elsa returned to public life differently. She used her voice to speak about dignity, about unseen heroes, about how love does not come in the shape the world expects. At a charity event 1 year later, Elsa stood on stage with Akin beside her. She looked out at the crowd and smiled. "This man," she said, "was once mocked for his height." She took his hand. But he stood taller than everyone when it mattered most. The room erupted in applause. Akin didn't bow, he didn't boast. He simply stood steady, calm, whole. That night, as they returned home, Elsa rested her head on his shoulder. "We survived," she whispered. "We chose truth," Akin replied, "that's why." Outside, the city lights glowed, bright, imperfect, real. And somewhere, a young person watching their story would learn something powerful. That real love doesn't ask what it can gain. It asks what it can give. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video and share it with someone who believes love is deeper than appearances. Subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this one. Now tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were Elsa or Akin? Have you ever seen someone judged unfairly only for the truth to change everything? Your voice matters.